We're going to Dvārakā with Lord Kṛṣṇa. It takes 2 chapters to discuss this pastime, but actually it goes way back before chapter 80 and 81 of Canto 10. It goes to the circumstance of Krishna's entering Sandipani Muni's Gurukula. And here's the circumstance. According to Jiva Goswami, Krishna remained in Vrindavan until he was 10 years, 8 months. And at that time, that's when, so all those pastimes that Krishna performed in Vrindavan was 10 years, 8 months. That's when Akrura came, and Akrura took him to Mathura, and Krishna did what Krishna did in Mathura. He dealt with Chanura and Mushtaka and Kubja and what's his name? Huh? Kamsa. And Chanur and Mushtaka and Kuvalyapida and everyone. And he went and freed his mother and father, Vasudeva and Devaki. They were astonished because they heard, they were kind of in disbelief of what their son just did. But after all, their mother and father, and according to the custom, when a Kshatriya boy turns 11, that's when his Upanayana takes place. So it's really perfect timing. So they arranged for Gargamuni to do the Upanayana ceremony. Would you like something? He wants, I see your hand motions.
Sorry. I said the sound.
Yeah, he wants you to turn the volume up. Yeah, we got your message. Thank you. You're very enthusiastic. What, is that your middle name? Utsaha.
Right now it's Kṛṣṇa Maharaj.
Utsaha. We had a nice greeting. When I came in the door, there he was, being Utsaha personified. We've met already. So Upanayana, and there was some exchange. The residents of Vrindavan, it was considered respectfully by Devaki and Vasudeva that they would invite, because they wouldn't, the foster father Nanda, who had been taking care of him, should be invited, but the only one that came was Rohini. And then what happens for a Kshatriya boy after Upanayana? He goes to school. And according to Garga Samhita, Krishna chose the school, Krishna and Balaram. And their contemplation, I'll show you the text, it's directly from Garga Samhita. But Krishna was considering, if I take a very prominent person like Vyasadeva as my guru, then the enemies, because they were enemies, then they'll give the Yadu dynasty some difficulty because it'll be well known. So I should select a place that's not well known. And anyone that I go to as a teacher, I already know everything, so does Balaram. You don't really need a teacher, but I should have a teacher because then it would set a wrong example if I don't go to a school. So he selected Sandipani Muni. Here's from Garga Samhita. Though we have knowledge by our natures, it is best that we go to the Gurukula. If we break the rules, it will be not auspicious for the world. A person who is fixed in Brahman and worships Shiva would be the best guru. The great soul Sandipani of a dynasty from Kashi is a worshipper of Shiva. He previously went to Prabhas and now lives in Avanti, a place emanating happiness and near to a Shiva temple. We should go there, but in such a way that others do not know. Otherwise, if it is widely known that we have gone far away, the enemies will give problems to the Yadus. He's very thoughtful. And, without reading Garga Samhita, I wouldn't have known that Sandipani Muni was a Shaivite. But he was a worshipper of Lord Shiva. At the same time, he became Krishna Bhakta, naturally. And his place of residence was near the Avanti River. And one of the persons that went to school at the same time, the same age, was a Brahmana named Sudāmā. Sudāmā Brahman. Sudāmā Brahman, the place where he was born, is now known by the name Sudāmā Puri. And here's a temple established at the place where he was born. Probably wasn't born in a temple like this, but this was inside. There's this nice deity of Sudāmā. And later he became married after school was completed. He married a wife named Sushila. And they settled in Porbandar, which is not far from Dvārakā. Because it's important, he goes to visit Kṛṣṇa from Porbandar. He has to cross by boat to get to Dvārakā. And as we hear this pastime, chapter 80, take note of the variety and the smoothness with which Kṛṣṇa transitions from one kind of relationship to another kind of relationship to another kind of relationship with Sudāmā. When he first greets him, he greets him as a Kshatriya would greet a Brahmana. And that's all very nice. And then the next mood that he moves into is he instructs him as his own devotee. Although Sudāmā knew that Kṛṣṇa was the personality of Godhead. His wife knew that Kṛṣṇa was the personality of Godhead. They knew how fortunate he was to have gone to school with Kṛṣṇa, the personality of Godhead. So Kṛṣṇa, knowing that he knew, having honored him as a Kshatriya honors a Brahmana, the mood shifts and he becomes the Supreme Lord instructing his devotee. And then the final mood seamlessly moves into just one friend reminiscing with the good old times. Remember when we did this and we did that? So, the opening of the chapter 80 is Shukadeva Goswami speaking. Lord Kṛṣṇa had a Brahmin friend named Sudāmā, whose mind was peaceful and his senses were subdued. Then the commentary says he wasn't just a Brahmana, but he was the best knower of the meaning of the Vedas. He was a very elevated Brahmana. And he had other characteristics. Because he was fixed in transcendence, he had a particular disposition of being absolutely detached from sense gratification. Now, he's a grihastha, and some grihasthas may live comfortably. Sudāmā was the kind of grihastha, the kind of person that just had no attraction for making arrangements for material comfort. Now, what to do when you have a wife? No problem, because his wife had the same disposition as him. Now, it won't work very well if the wife has one and the husband has another, but there was a good match. He maintained himself whatever came of its own accord. It's like a sannyasi, you probably know. There are different stages in Vedic culture of sannyas. And the final stage is the Paramahansa stage. Kutichak, Bahudak, Paribrajakacharya, and Paramahansa. The Paramahansa stage was the stage that Madhavendra Puri was on. Madhavendra Puri the Paribrajakacharya will go from place to place, and they'll accept alms. Some part of the day, they go to the door of householders and accept alms. And householders are very happy having an elevated sannyasi come to their door, and they're more than happy to give alms plus. But he didn't do that. Madhavendra Puri accepted only when somebody brought something. And Sudāmā lived like that too. Whatever came of its own accord. He didn't go to the office, he didn't have that kind of a lifestyle. He just whatever came. And as a result, he didn't have nice clothes. His wife didn't have nice clothes. He looked emaciated from hunger, and so did she. Breast, badly colored, worn out, soiled cloth, but her renunciation was like her husband's. So she wasn't distressed. It suited her just fine to be living that lifestyle. No mention of children, just husband, wife. And one fine day, she, being in anxiety, seeing her husband so lean and thin, she spoke with him and she made a request. She was a little reluctant to do so, but she was concerned about the welfare of her husband. "Oh, fortunate one, please approach him, the real shelter of all saints. He will certainly give abundant wealth to such a suffering householder as you." So there's their house. Looks like someplace you put for your kids in your backyard or something. A little cabin. And her concern wasn't for herself. Her concern was her husband. And the description is, he was so skinny, not only you could see his bones, but you could see the veins bulging from his body, rubbing against the bones. It was really thin. Sudāma's wife, Shushila, so he said, he thought, "My dear wife, I don't need anything. We'll hear later." Even if requested to accept something, he wouldn't accept something, which Kṛṣṇa knew, so Kṛṣṇa didn't ask him to accept something. Anyway, not only had no interest, he was like Raghunath Das Goswami. He just didn't have any attraction at all for anything material. But my wife, I know it's of my interest that she's concerned. And after all, my dear friend Kṛṣṇa, I could get a chance to see my dear friend Kṛṣṇa. So all this time, for so many years, they hadn't met one another, because by this time Krishna's in Dvārakā. He has 16,108 wives and 16,108 palaces, and it's not like 20 years ago. They went to school together. It's much older. In any case, because chapter 80, this is long time. So he said, it's just culture. We have to, if I'm going to go see Kṛṣṇa, I have to give him a gift. And she said, well, we don't have anything. But I'll go to neighbors and see if the neighbors can give me something that you can take with you. So she went to some neighbors, 4 handfuls of flat rice, broken flat rice. And she didn't have a nice, plastic bag from Target or something. She had an old cloth that had holes in it, and she put the 4 handfuls in. So it's very, very important cloth. in the Leela, it's very important. Because, so he's carrying the rice in this little cloth. And here's next painting showing there he's walking with the little cloth in his bag, in his hand. And he was thinking as he's walking to the boat dock so he can get across to Dvārakā, how am I going to get in? And once I get in, because there's many gates and guards at the gates, how's it going to work? Whoops. Uh-oh. Shh. But somehow, because he's Krishna's dear friend, it'll work. Commentary says, because he was so exalted, he was seeing Kṛṣṇa always, anyways. But seeing him within his heart is one thing. Seeing Kṛṣṇa face to face is another thing. And he got in a boat, crossed to Dvārakā city, and was astonished with what he saw. Because he's, this poverty-stricken Brahmana. And liking it. But look at what he saw. Golden palaces, fortresses, assembly halls, spectacle of opulence, Dvārakā city. And as he was walking, there were other brahmanas that were simultaneously walking with him, and he was very surprised that he was allowed to enter all these gates. But the Yadu dynasty members were very kind, and they gave special privileges and honor to the brahmanas. That was their nature. But ordinarily, people wouldn't get into Dvārakā just like that. So although he's shabbily dressed, etc., walking into. I remember when Kṛṣṇa was trying to enter Mathura, he wanted the cowherd boys to be dressed appropriate for the big city. And this is more than the big city. This is Dvārakā. But they let him enter. And as he's walking, you see that bottom left, he's walking with a little bag in his hand. And he came very near to the doorway of Queen Rukmini's palace. This pastime is also discussed in Padma Purana. And as he was passing by the doorway to the palace, Kṛṣṇa saw him from a distance. And when Kṛṣṇa saw him from a distance, he was startled. He recognized, it's my dear friend, Sudāmā. And immediately he stood up and he went to greet him. And according to the commentary, he became confused. Because he remembers Sudāmā as a little boy. And of course he was a little boy too. But looks very different. Notice over his left shoulder, that's that celebrated bag with chipped rice. Immediately, in front of everyone, this shabbily dressed Brahmana, Kṛṣṇa stretched his arms, wrapped his arms around Sudāmā, and started rubbing his body again and again, tears of ecstasy flooding Kṛṣṇa's eyes. loving reciprocation. It's not just in the Canto 2, Chapter 9, Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Brahma, by his austerities and his meditation, the Supreme Personality of Godhead appeared in all of his opulence of Vaikuntha. And the Lord rose when he came before Brahma. He rose to greet him. And he extended his hand and shook his hand. Friendship. And this is more than shook his hand. Kṛṣṇa is rubbing his arms all over the body of Sudāmā, feeling ecstasy just touching his body and shedding tears of love. Another nice painting of the same. Intensely. So after that greeting, what did Kṛṣṇa do? Kṛṣṇa forcibly sat Sudāmā on the couch. And Sudāmā had to be forced because otherwise he wouldn't do it. So he forced him. And after having him sit on the couch, notice the bag of the rice in his hand, and behind him, with the chamra fan raised, that's Rukmini, because he went right first into Rukmini's palace. So the place where he and Rukmini would sit, that's where Sudāmā sat. And Kṛṣṇa's at his feet, performing basically deity worship, including Abhishek. And the Abhishek in this case is the washing of the feet of the Brahmana. We'll get a close-up look, but Sudāmā doesn't seem to be paying too much interest to his feet. He's taking lots of interest in Kṛṣṇa's eyes. And Kṛṣṇa's washing his feet, but looking into Sudāma's eyes. Here's a close-up. And there's tears in Kṛṣṇa's eyes, rolling down his cheek, and same with Sudāmā. And the maidservants are watching all of this and wondering, what's this? Who's this fortunate person? And after bathing his feet, Kṛṣṇa, the Supreme Lord, sprinkled the foot wash on his head. And the commentary is not just culturally nice, but out of his prema, his love for the devotee who loved him. Sudāmā is a little uncomfortable at all of this, but what to do? Kṛṣṇa is forcing him. The commentary then also says there's Rukmini with the chamara, and it wasn't suited for her. The discoloration of his body indicated he wasn't fit for Rukmini to serve him, but she wanted to do. She wanted to do, again it says, because she's deeply devoted to her husband, and because her husband is deeply devoted to Sudāmā, she's more than happy to be the worshipper of Sudāmā. This is Rukmini, the goddess of fortune, worshipping the poor Brahmana. And after he's foot wash, there's lots of paintings showing the foot wash. Next comes a big meal. And big meal. He doesn't have proper clothing, so Kṛṣṇa arranges for proper clothing. After his bath, foot wash, then a bath, fresh clothing. The commentary says the reason is going to be given later why this sequence. And then big meal. Sandalwood, aguru, kunkum, aromatic incense, lamps, it's just like bathing, dressing, and now offering. And then comes the bhoga offering. Big meal. Sudāma's a skinny guy, probably couldn't eat too much. But lavishly he was provided. And then finally, betel nut, the gift of a cow and pleasing words. So now the mood is going to shift. This is the Kshatriya worshipping, duly worshipping, respectable, highly elevated Brahmana. So now comes some affection, additional affection. Kṛṣṇa takes Sudāma's hand. And while taking Sudāma's hand, he starts describing their life together in the ashram of Sandipani Muni. So now the topic is going to move, not just the good old days, but how important it is to offer all respect to the Guru. It's built within this story. Because Kṛṣṇa reached out and held Sudāma's hand, in reciprocation, Sudāma took Kṛṣṇa's hand. And then they began speaking. And the conversation moves into this instructive phase. My dear Brahmana, you know well the ways of Dharma. After you offered the gift of remuneration to our Guru and returned home from his school, did you marry a compatible wife? And the commentary says, because he was dressed as a householder, it was clear that he was a householder. But he had no attraction for material pleasure. Therefore, are you married or you're not married? If you have no attraction for material pleasure, what's your ashram? Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes, it's a fault that having completed school to not establish what your ashram is. So you must have established what your ashram is, but please disclose, like as if Kṛṣṇa doesn't know already, right? Even though you are mostly involved in household affairs, your mind is not affected by material desires. Nor, learned one, do you take much pleasure in the pursuit of material wealth. This I am well aware of. No, so it's affection, but it's instruction. He's already the knower of Dharma, but he's asking about his pursuit of Dharma, besides knowing it, but living it. Just see, this man, though a householder, is without desire, and does not desire anything from others. Even if forcibly given, he will not accept things. So Kṛṣṇa didn't force him, he did it in a tricky way. Again, Vishwanath commentary. For the sake of your wife, you are displaying a favorable disposition towards material wealth. Meaning that's why he came. Kṛṣṇa knows why he came. He doesn't say why he came, but he's indirectly saying, I know why you came. And don't worry, I know you don't want anything, so I won't force it, I'll just give it later. Very subtle, very respectful. Kṛṣṇa wants to give everything, and Sudāma doesn't want to receive anything. So he doesn't force it. He's respecting the mood of his devotee. I will not reveal his desire to anyone, and therefore I will not give anything visible to him here. Doesn't want to disturb his mood of bhakti. Kṛṣṇa goes on. Having renounced all material propensities which spring from the Lord's illusory energy, he's speaking of the Lord's illusory energy, although he's the Lord with his illusory energy. He's speaking third person. Having renounced all material propensities which spring from the Lord's illusory energy, some people execute worldly duties with their minds, undisturbed by mundane desires. They act as I do, to instruct the general populace. So he's, intimating indirectly, rather than praising, he's intimating indirectly, you do what I do. I live in luxury and you live in poverty. And my dedication is not the illusory energy dedication of accepting opulence and using it. And yours is similarly. You have a certain nature and you're exhibiting the character and quality of one with that nature in an instructive manner. Very good, very good. Though not completely overcome by desire, some, with discrimination, get married and follow conduct of a householder to destroy their attraction for enjoying. Now that's an ideal situation. I mean, there's less than ideal situations in the world, but it's an ideal situation, even for someone that does not have the allure of material enjoyment of the senses. Whatever residual tendencies remain, the grihastha ashram may be a suited ashram for such a person. Oh. Sometimes little children sound like birds. This is one of them. So now the scene starts to change from instructing about the duties of household life. It's, my dear Brahma, do you remember when? We lived together in our spiritual master's school. When a twice-born student, so both of them had Upanayana, they had received their Gayatri mantras. When a twice-born student has learned from his guru all that is to be learned, he can enjoy spiritual life, which is beyond all ignorance. So, again, it's the mood of friendship, but he's also in an instructing role about the importance of the guru-disciple relationship and acting properly as a student and after student life in relation to guru. Realizing the knowledge imparted by one's guru, one surpasses ignorance with all its suffering and attains Vaikuntha. To destroy, quote, criticizing the fault of enduring great hardship and to show that such a life is the cause of happiness, Kṛṣṇa glorifies service to one's guru. So that is to say, the two, Kṛṣṇa and Sudāmā, went to school together. They were the best of friends. They learned from the same guru. They offered respect to the same guru. And one went this way and the other went that way. Kṛṣṇa into the life of opulence, Sudāmā into the life of detachment from any worldly anything. Both were establishing the glory of their teacher. That's Krishna's message, and it's the duty of a student to do like that. Gopal Champu, another place where this pastime is narrated, it says, in 64 days, Krishna and Balaram mastered the 64 branches of knowledge, placing that knowledge in their hearts like pictures, since in their hearts lay the whole universe, which their guru could not understand. And so what happened after 64 days? They graduated. They went back to Mathura. Fast track. How'd you like to finish your education in 64 days? Not so likely. And there's the picture of his wife, Shushila, and she's tapping or patting Kṛṣṇa on the head, and she then gave them some service to do. My dear friend, he who gives a person his physical birth is his first spiritual master, and he who initiates him as a twice-born Brahmana and engages him in religious duties is indeed more directly his spiritual master. Notice the same picture, just from the other side. Just flip it around. But the person who bestows transcendental knowledge upon the members of all the spiritual orders of society is one's ultimate spiritual master. Indeed, he is as good as my own self. Clear? Of the three gurus, that's biological father, Diksha Guru, Shiksha Guru, of the three gurus, the one who gives knowledge of the Lord is the highest guru. So, Sandipani Muni did all of that. He gave them the 64 angas of the Vedas, and he also gave them knowledge of transcendence, because, now, he was a Shaivite, but he was a worshipper of, but he also was vastly learned in the scriptures, and the scriptures teach about Brahman. Now, did he know Bhagavan feature of Brahman? Doesn't say. But he certainly knew Brahman, and so they received transcendental knowledge. I, the soul of all beings, the Antaryami, am not as satisfied by ritual worship, Brahminical initiation, penance or self-discipline as I am by faithful service rendered to one's spiritual master. Now, Kṛṣṇa teaches this in many places. It's right embedded in this discussion with Sudāmā Brahman. Do you remember what happened when we were living with our spiritual master once? Our guru's wife sent us to fetch firewood. Now, this is a comic illustration. It looks like they're just playing, hanging from a branch of a tree and carrying firewood. But what happened was, when they were out in the forest gathering the firewood, a big storm. Guess who arranged the big storm? Big storm came. Torrential rain, big wind, blowing everything according to the text. They couldn't tell high ground from low ground. It was flooding everywhere. And there they were in the forest. And night came. And when the night came, what to do? They couldn't see anything. So they just stayed in the forest. An unseasonal storm arose with fierce wind and rain and harsh thunder. Then, in little instructions to Guru, Kṛṣṇa now invokes the following childhood memory. By suffering hardship together during our service to Guru, we established firm friendship. Hint. In the course of devotional service, we may, practically guaranteed, may have to go through some difficulties. And if you go through those difficulties in an affectionate way with another Vaishnava or Vaishnavi, then it's natural between one Vaishnava to another that some affection for one another will develop. And this, he's reminding Sudāmā of that friendship and their hardship. As the sun set, the forest was covered by darkness in every direction. Even the moon couldn't see. There's just heavy clouds. flooding everywhere, constantly besieged by the powerful wind and rain. We lost our way. We simply held each other's hands and in great distress wandered aimlessly about the forest. You remember Sudāmā? And so what to do? They decided finally they just would lie down someplace and take rest. And what about Sandipani Muni? He saw the storm, the night had set, what to do, where are the boys, they didn't come back. So first thing in the morning, as soon as the sun came up, he went with a little search party looking for the boys, and sure enough, he found them. And Sandipani Muni was in great distress. The boys look like they're doing all right. He showed them so much affection. And he spoke with them. My children, you have suffered so much for my sake and for my wife's sake, disregarding your own comfort because you are so dedicated to me. So he's grateful, not and expecting anything, grateful of that sacrifice. That's an important lesson when someone is assisting a great soul, that person who's assisting the great soul gets some appreciation. Not that they need it, but it's just appropriate. And the person who's on the receiving end naturally feels some gratitude. This indeed is the duty of all true disciples, to repay the debt to their spiritual master by offering him with pure hearts, their wealth, and even their very lives. Standard instruction, not always followed. Sudāmā said to Kṛṣṇa in response, "What could I possibly have failed to achieve, O Lord of Lords, O universal teacher, since I was able to personally live with you, whose every desire is fulfilled at the home of our spiritual master?" So the reward for Sudāmā was Krishna's association. And it didn't leave him, it grew and grew and grew. As we heard, he's always carrying Kṛṣṇa in his heart as a mature adult. Now, that's the end of chapter 80. So that's the end of all the pictures. What to do? But I'll just narrate the rest. Chapter 81. In chapter 81, after this nice exchange about service to Guru, etc., Kṛṣṇa doesn't say, "So could you tell me why you came to visit?" Because he already knew. And he knew that Sudāmā didn't want anything. And if he asked him, he wouldn't take it. So he didn't ask him. Instead, he asked for some service. He said, "Sudāmā, I see you're holding a bag. What's in the bag? Did you bring something for me, Sudāmā?" I remember one time, some of you may know Bhakti Marg Swami. He likes drama. And there's another very wonderful Vaishnava named Pragosh in Ireland. He likes drama. And when those two get together, it's very dramatic. So just for some levity, they decided, let's play charades. You know what charades are? You don't say anything, you just act out something, and the audience has to guess what's the story. That's called charades. So, I was Sudāmā. And I forgot the most important thing. That's why I've been emphasizing it. Pragosh told me, you didn't show the bag of rice. You just show the bag of rice behind your back, and everyone will know what it is. So Kṛṣṇa snatched the bag from Sudāmā, and he opened up this old raggedy cloth and took a morsel of the rice and popped it in his mouth. Oh, Sudāmā, you've been having a feast and you didn't even invite me. And so he reached for more rice. Rukmini grabbed his hand. Very bold. It's not fit for you, my lord. And they didn't have an argument. Wait a minute. I'm the boss. But he had accepted that patram pushpam palam toyam yobe bhaktya prayachati. And with that, he then bade farewell. This is all in the course of one day. It's a long journey, not terribly long. Now he's got to get in a boat and go back to his home. And as he's going back to his home, he's walking, thinking, Krishna's so kind. He knew why I came, and he didn't ask me why I came. He hinted at it, but he didn't ask. And if he had asked, I would have had to tell him the truth, because I'm a Brahmin. I'd have to tell him the truth, and then Krishna would give me all this opulence. But Krishna knows my heart. He knows that if I got something very, very special from him, I'd become proud. So he didn't even ask me. I mean, that wasn't the reason he didn't ask. He just was honoring his nature. Krishna's so kind. Krishna's so kind. And he finally got to his home, and he was very surprised. He didn't see his home. Instead, he saw a big palace. What happened to my home? And from the big palace came a woman who he didn't even recognize, because she was all decorated in nice garments and ornaments. And who are you? I'm your wife. Oh yeah, you're my wife. And she explained, I assumed that because you had asked Kṛṣṇa, this was Kṛṣṇa's reciprocation to providing the means, so you didn't have to live in such squalor, in this skinny, emaciated body with unsuitable clothing. And I see you wearing nice clothing. Kṛṣṇa must have given you some nice clothing. So then he could understand. Kṛṣṇa is very kind. This is the heart of a devotee. Whether they don't have or they have or they don't have, they have and it's taken, and they don't have and it's given, and it doesn't matter. What matters, it doesn't matter if the most essential thing is the essential thing, and that's the connection, the shelter with Kṛṣṇa. Say it negatively. If that shelter and connection with Kṛṣṇa is not there, then one can not have and be in great distress, or one can have and be want more, and more and more and more and more, and then lose it and get distressed and tossed around by the waves of the material energy for illusory happiness. What a waste. So therefore the lesson is, take shelter. Now if you get a chance to go to school with Kṛṣṇa, then do it. And if you don't have the chance to go to school with Kṛṣṇa, then hear about Kṛṣṇa's going to school with Sudāmā and the kind of love that results. And then you can look up to Sudāmā. And Maharaj Parikshit, who also was looking up to Sudāmā by the grace of his spiritual master and his father, Vyasadeva. And we also have our spiritual masters. We can look up to our spiritual masters who are giving us these lessons of how to become simply attached to Kṛṣṇa and not to whether we have or we don't have. I mean, if you have, it's going to change. If you don't have, it's going to change. And if you're attached to things not changing, good luck, because things are always changing for however long it may last, and then something changes, and then something changes. So be attached to that which doesn't change. That's wise. And the Supreme Personality of Godhead and our loving relationship with Him, that's our eternal shelter. And the good news is Kṛṣṇa is always kind. That's the good news. I'm going to end with this. From Gitanagari, one of the devotee couples that came to the Gitanagari retreat was, I don't know if you know him, Parma Rupa and his wife Atulya and their 2 children. So they stayed an extra day and they came to see me when I was not in Gitanagari but in New Jersey. And I asked, what's up? She said, our daughter, who's, I think she's 11 years old, had a recital at Carnegie Hall. You know what Carnegie Hall is, right? You've heard of it? No? It's a posh, puffy-wuffy kind of a place, you know, very elite kind of a place, Carnegie Hall. And she had been selected amongst, 5 children, youth, to do a recital, a piano recital. Because she had a piano teacher. The piano teacher had connections. So the piano teacher did a video of her playing a piano and sent the video to the Carnegie Hall people, and she was selected amongst, it was 3 or 5, maybe it was just 3. And so recital at Carnegie Hall. So they left that evening. This was, forget which day of the week. So I wanted to find out, how did it go? So the daughter sent me a little note. I was so nervous. I thought I'd really blow it. There was so many people and so many lights, and like I felt like it. I was panic-stricken. But somehow I prayed to Kṛṣṇa, and I sat down, and just because I practiced this so many times, it came out all right. And then there was such applause, and it was like overwhelmed, and somehow I made it through. So my reply is just like the Sudāmā story. Kṛṣṇa is very kind. Even when you're nervous to the max, or whatever it is to the max, good fortune, ill fortune to the max, Kṛṣṇa is kind. His shelter is always there. Rely on it in any circumstance. And that's our life's mission. Shelter in Kṛṣṇa regardless of the externals. So how do we get that shelter of Kṛṣṇa? It starts with the holy name. And chanting of the holy name in a purposeful manner. In the taking shelter of that sound vibration. We discussed this at Harmony Collective yesterday. So I'm not going to go give that same class again. It was a nice topic. Dhyana Chandra Goswami, in the disciplic succession of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, wrote a book on chanting. And one of the phrases is, the mind should be within the name should be within the mind. Seamless connection between the two. We're not there yet, but we strive to get there. And as we strive to get there in a focused practice, striving manner, we may get there. And that's taking shelter. And that when you have that shelter, it's with you regardless of the external circumstance. Like kids when you have exams. Do you get stressed out when you have exams? Sometimes. What about your piano recital at Carnegie Hall? Or something that gives tension and stress. If there's shelter, then you're protected. It doesn't mean the circumstance changes. It just means your experience of the circumstance changes because your heart is connected. And the best means to start with, it's the Bhagavatam and the holy name for sadhakas. Other things too, deity worship and serving the Vaishnavas. Living in Flint, Michigan, or Vrindavan, at least within your heart. And then there's shelter. Okay, let's see if there's some discussion. Sudāmā. Yes.
Maharaj, Sandipani Muni was a devotee of Lord Shiva, and I was thinking about how even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't take sannyas from a Vaishnav guru, and my understanding is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's purpose was to do that, was to assist with being accepted by all devotees so that he could preach. I was just wondering what...
Madhavendra Puri, same. Excuse me, Madhvacharya, same. Madhvacharya, the same. Okay. His Diksha Guru was not, it was a Mayavadi in his line. Go ahead.
So those purposes seem clear to me. I was just wondering what was Krishna's purpose of having a non-Vaishnav guru, and how should we process that or learn? What should we learn from that?
It's not that there's some we should follow in the footsteps kind of a message. There's my understanding is there's a Leela. And the enactment of the Leela was to help Sandipani Muni get Krishna Bhakti. Because he was fit. Not just any, but because he was fit. He was a well-known, vastly learned person who, by social circumstance, he was a worshipper of Lord Shiva, but not necessarily by his heart he was a worshipper of Lord Shiva. Or the way that sometimes Shiva worshippers take Lord Shiva to be the supreme. Some Shiva worshippers don't take him to be like that. But he was a fit candidate to receive Krishna's mercy. So Krishna gave his mercy.
And I was also going to ask that point about Sandipani Muni changing or growing from being a Shiva Bhakta to a Krishna Bhakta. Is that explicitly stated, and where? Or
it's just in commentary, and it's not a lot written in commentary about it.
Okay.
It's a byproduct of association with Krishna and Balaram.
Okay. I have many more questions, actually. But can I ask one more in connection with this?
Yes.
I have heard, and I haven't done my research, but I've heard that every soul that was present while Lord Chaitanya was present on the planet was delivered. And I'm not sure about the source, and I was wondering if it's accurate and what the source is.
It's a discussion between Lord Chaitanya and Haridas Thakur. And Lord Chaitanya said, Haridas, what are you saying? I see so many living entities. And then Haridas Thakur said, those living entities that were delivered were replaced by other living entities that were inanimate living entities. And they took the place of the animate living entities that were delivered. How many souls are there in this room? There's so many souls in human bodies, and then how many souls in addition to those in human bodies? So the inanimate, not yet embodied, this is Haridas Thakur. Surely you've delivered. And you replace them, those that you delivered, with other souls. Now, I can't remember which scriptural reference that comes from, but I'm quite familiar with that discussion. Okay, we'll come back to you, I'm sure, after others get a chance.
Kṛṣṇa Maharaj, thank you very much for wonderfully narrating Sudāma's pastime. I was just contemplating on this statement, how a grihastha can apply basically, though not completely overcome by desire. Some with discrimination get married and follow conduct of householder to destroy their attraction for enjoying. So this means sometimes it's not by purpose somebody is doing this, but by part of our life. Like we got married and came into Krishna consciousness. But sometimes this married life will get us more and more involved in material things. Yeah. So here it says that destroy the attraction for enjoying. So how do we?
How does it work? What's the technology for that one, please? It's a principle of incrementalism where one learns there's a source, and it's Ishopanishad. Isabashamidam sarvam yatkincha jagatyam jagat tena. So, bunjitaha, that he's the enjoyer because he's the source and therefore the proprietor. And that's not the consciousness that most people get married with or live as householders. In many cases, it's at some point in time a little light goes on. Some association with someone who's a bhakta taps you on the shoulder and warms your heart and says, everything belongs to Kṛṣṇa. So dedicate everything that belongs to Kṛṣṇa. So little by little by little, that dedication unto Kṛṣṇa principle brings two things: detachment from the enjoying principle and the awakening of the bhakti principle. So it's incrementally one can, the design is to move in that direction. The Vaishnava grihastha life is meant to gradually help one move in that direction, according to the strength of bhakti. And according to the strength of bhakti, it doesn't mean trash stuff. It means see it as how it's supposed to be, how it's supposed to be seen. This is Krishna's paraphernalia. It's meant to be used in his service. That's easier said than done, but that's the principle. Bhakti principle elevates the attachment to detachment and attachment to Kṛṣṇa, and thus detachment from the enjoying spirit. And grihastha life is a suitable instrument for achieving that. And there's the risk. There's a risk of just getting attached and thinking it's bona fide. I'm a Vaishnava grihastha. Anyway, there's a risk in not doing. There's a risk in doing. not doing artificially, there's a risk. Doing when I know I have a tendency and do anyways, there's a risk. So bhakti is the savior for both, the attached and the detached. That's how it works.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
I don't know if I'm understanding this right, but I'm kind of confused as to how Sudāmā, like why he was a grahastha, but then not providing for his family. Like, if you're a grahastha, aren't you supposed to provide for your family? Or is it that he was trying to, but he just wasn't making any money?
Well, in his case, his family was in sync with his propensity to not want stuff. So it was not a problem. He was providing according to his nature, and his wife was happy for her nature. The degree to which she was not happy was to see how skinny my husband is. I mean, specifically, you could see the veins under his skin bulging, rubbing against the bone, and she didn't like that.
Then how come he went to Kṛṣṇa if he could have done more for himself first? Like, aren't we supposed to try our best and then ask Kṛṣṇa?
Well, his wife knew Sudāmā better than you do. That's not. He was willing to go. He was willing to go. Not just like, let me go get a job so my wife can be happy that I've got something more to eat than nothing to eat. I mean, 4 palmfuls of flat rice wasn't in the house. He had to go borrow from neighbors. So what was in the house? Nothing. So your question is, wait a minute, isn't the man of the house supposed to provide? That's your question. And so go get a job. Well, he doesn't have that. His wife didn't ask that. His wife asked, go to your friend who's the source of everything, and he'll gladly help a poor Brahmin like you in a time of need. And he's thinking, that's not really the issue. The issue is, I'd like to see Kṛṣṇa. So that's always what was going on. So don't second guess Sudāmā or his wife. It's the Kṛṣṇa bhakti factor that was operating. You have something.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So I had a question regarding like presentation of ourselves.
About what?
Of like our presentation of ourselves, like
Ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when we go out, like how we dress, like how we look, it makes an impression, leaves an impression on others.
Yes, it does.
And at the same time, Kṛṣṇa wanted like the Kaurava to be dressed appropriately for the city, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, you can't get too attached, right, to like
Can't
how
get
you're
too
dressed
attached.
and like how you're looking too. So like, how much importance are we supposed to put on this presentation?
How much makeup to buy?
Huh?
How much makeup to buy is what she
No. My sense is 2 things. Each person has their nature. And so, according to your nature or each person's nature, they should live genuinely according to their nature. Not simply to impress or woo or draw attention, something, something, something. But according to nature. And then the second is according to circumstance. I forget the circumstance, but I recall hearing a description. Prabhupada was going to be attending some highbrow function. I don't know, a better way to describe it, but it's like a fancy, schmancy thing. So he asked them to arrange for very freshly dyed silk cloth, freshly ironed with starch and all that, bells and whistles. And so they gave him the clothes that he requested. He changed his clothes and came out and put his hand over his head like this and turned around slowly, did a pirouette. For the occasion. But his need was, he didn't have need. But he could accept opulence, no problem, without indulging. And then, so, depends on the circumstance. I have a godbrother, Lakshmi Nrsimha Prabhu, who was fond of saying, first dress, then address. Public speaking, know your audience, and according to the audience, then you dress appropriate for the audience. Like Bhakti Tirtha Swami, when he would go before an African American audience, he'd dress African American, right? You've seen photos, like really funny hats, and and sometimes with a dhoti, and sometimes just the funny dress. So depending upon, and then a dress. So if you're, supposing you're not a public speaker at a function, then how important is it? I say it's important to be yourself. Did you attended the Gita Nagari retreat? Did you notice? You probably noticed how Nandi Mukhi addressed. She says very simple. Nice, but very simple. It's just being herself. And it's, that's the kind of person she is. She's herself. She doesn't have to be like everybody else or something. So be yourself. And if you have some opulent jewelry or clothing or something, don't be attached to it. That's the unwholesome part. It's not having or not having. It's being attached. That's the unwholesome part. So it depends on the circumstance. I go. Did that take care of your question?
In the scriptures here, do you think that Sudāmā had children like, Draun story in Mahabharata that Draun goes to, for his children, he's going to get the milk and he goes to Drupad.
Yeah.
Is that the same thing? Sudāmā had children and his wife wanted to feed the children. Is that the way?
No, he had no children. Sudāmā had no children.
Okay, so it's a little different.
It's a different story.
Thank you.
Mr. Enthusiasm in the back.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
No, it's fine. My question is, Krishna tells us not to envy him very specifically. He also had enemies, like Sishupala, Hiranyakashipu. He killed a lot of people. Apparently he also liberated many of them. So how should we, is it an option to hate him?
How should we do? No, what was the question?
Why would he liberate them? The people who hated him.
How did he deal with the people who hated him?
No, I thought he liberated them. Like he took them back to Godhead, many of his enemies that he killed.
So what's your question?
The question is why...
Why did he liberate them?
Why he liberated them?
Right.
Oh, why not?
I mean, devotional service is the way to get there, so why would the opposite also get you there?
Well, this is a science. Take the microphone from him. Their minds were fixed on him. So the principle of the manmana, he doesn't say, the manmana part can be from different angles. So the purification for Shishupal was his mind was fixed in Krishna. He was chanting Krishna's name like anything. So he was becoming purified by that absorption of his mind in Krishna. Okay? Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. One question comes in mind is Krishna is in everybody's heart and Krishna knows about the situation of everybody.
Yeah.
So why Krishna waited for Sudāmā to personally come to him and then helped him? That time also he helped him without Sudāmā knowing. So why Krishna did not help Sudāmā earlier itself without Sudāma's knowing?
That same question was asked when we spoke about this in Gita Nagari. Remember that question?
Maybe I missed that time.
Yeah, someone asked that question. He's having a loving exchange with Sudāmā. And respecting the fact that Sudāmā wouldn't accept something even if forced, so Krishna didn't. He was respecting the heart of Sudāmā. So when Sudāmā came and Sudāmā made this offering, Krishna accepted. And then he reciprocated like anything. It's a lila of loving exchange with his own devotee. Krishna was okay with Sudāmā being okay. He was okay. And his wife was not okay because she's not like, why don't you go get a job and support your family? That wasn't his wife. So they were okay. And so why is it that then comes this broader question, that why is it that we find, this is a common question, that worshippers of demigods may be opulent and worshippers of Vishnu may not be so opulent? No, worshippers of Vishnu may be very opulent. And there's many, many, many examples of very opulent worshippers of Vishnu, and some are not. So why would Krishna allow that? So they don't get attached, and their contentment is already achieved. Their necessities are being met, and Sudāmā was just in this department or category of extreme satisfaction, and therefore completely not requiring material stuff. So he wasn't in distress.
As a follow-up question could be,
Yes.
Was it maybe Sudāmā some prarabdha that he had to face up to a certain point of time? That's why he had to... Because ultimately it's destiny which plays the role that Sudāmā had to continue like that at a particular point of time?
Oh, it's not destiny, it was his choice. That's like buying a house. I'm glad you don't have to go through that. But where and how much and yada, yada, yada. So he didn't have to go through all that. He was very, very, very peaceful. So it wasn't a destiny thing. It was just he was content. and his wife was content. So, the Leela brought about what happened, Krishna's loving reciprocation with his devotee. Circumstance. Okay. Yeah, I see a question way back there. Okay. Go ahead. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
My peripheral vision wasn't working so well.
Thank you, Maharaj. Maharaj, my question is more beyond this pastime of Sudāmā.
Okay.
So after Lord Krishna gave him everything,
Yeah.
now Sudāmā has everything, including the materialistic opulences.
Yeah.
From there on, how was Sudāmā able to carry that mood of bhakti?
He slept on the
surrender
floor. Specifically, he kept the same standard of detachment. Not just detachment, but like he didn't like. So he kept the same mood. His wife's got what she's got, and he's got the palace, and he's sleeping on the floor, and eating frugally. He just kept the same standard.
So the entire family was able to carry that mood
Yeah.
even after that.
He didn't get disturbed.
Not that
He didn't get, at last.
Yes.
No, it's certainly possible. It wouldn't be inappropriate if he accepted, but he didn't because it was his mood. Accepted something. He was quite okay with what was his mood. It was his mood.
Even staying in the Grasta ashram and carrying on with the same
Yeah,
mood. Yes,
yeah.
Thank you, Maharaj. Maharaj, one more small question is, so you see in the examples there is, so Lord Krishna, Lord Ram was Kshatriya, but in a Grasta ashram. Sudāmā was a Brahman, but in a Grasta ashram.
Yeah.
But the Sandipani Muni or other munis who are teachers and doing living in an ashram, but we see whether Sandipani Muni is guru wife or Vishishta Muni's wife, they are teachers, but are they treated as Grasta ashram?
Yes.
Or they are
Yeah.
or they are self
Oh, yeah.
Grasta ashram there.
Oh yeah.
Not sannyasis will not.
No.
Thank you, Maharaj.
I mean, it's at a certain stage something like that becomes doable, but I don't know of any. I don't know of any indication where after some time Sandipani Muni said, "Time for Vanaprastha." No, it's just not in the Puranas. Maybe that happened. I don't know. Okay.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Way in the back, and then you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Go ahead.
Maharaj, is there a reason why Rukmini Devi stopped Lord Krishna from
Yeah,
eating?
it's not fit for him. If you're the goddess of fortune and you see Krishna eating that broken rice, it's not fit for you. It's her love. It's not fit for you. It's got to be opulent. Goddess of fortune, opulent standard. It's not like she didn't understand the love and devotion with which Sudāmā was carrying, and the loving reciprocation with which Krishna was accepting the humble offering. It's not like she wasn't aware of that. But she was being the goddess of fortune.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, as we are practicing bhakti, we make mistakes.
No.
And also in the family life, we tend to have quarrels with our spouse and with children and all. and it disturbs us very badly in a negative way. We get discouraged. I'm not fit to be a devotee. I'm not fit to be a good husband or wife. And you go in a downward spiral instead of coming out of it. It's like stress eating. You are stressed, you eat more that you're not supposed to eat, and then you eat more of that because you're stressed out. And you're not able to come out of this loop. So how do we take something positive out of it and understand Krishna is forgiving, and I can improve from here? How do you...
Well, you're a good coach. You could take care of anybody in a situation like that. It's bhakti. I spent most of my day today preparing for a seminar on Madhurya Kandamani, and your question fits with chapter 4. The topic of chapter 4 is the nishtha, steadiness. And one of the topics in that chapter is there are two categories of steadiness. One, that arises from bhakti itself. And then the second is, steadiness may arise from those characteristics of the mode of goodness that one who is a devotee will carry. But someone may not be completely absorbed in bhakti, but have good characteristics. It's that statement by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is commented by so many commentators. But yasyasti bhaktir bhagavat yakinchana sarvayar ganashtatra samasade. You know the verse? The harav abhaktasya kuto mahadguna. For those who are devotees, all the good qualities of the devas become manifest in them, arising from bhakti. So steadiness in devotional service can arise from bhakti itself. That's one. Or steadiness, because, back to your question, steadiness may arise by those qualities that are attendant to or concomitant with bhakti. And then the commentary, the text of Vishwanath reads, only a qualified person can discern which type of steadiness. And then he gives a clue. The steadiness arising from bhakti is when the activities of bhakti are steady. So now back to your question. How to come out of the spiral. It's, how to deal with negative emotions. Pause. Take a look at the circumstance from a detached perspective. What's going on here? This, and then that, and this, the emotion, and the emotion is ruling. That's what's going on here. So why is the emotion ruling when I'm not that emotion? The emotion is part of the movie that's going on in my mind. But I'm not the movie and not the emotion. Who am I? So that, reflection, go into the mode of goodness space, and reflect like that. And then make some choices that lead to A or B. The symptoms of one who's in the mode of goodness or stronger, just take shelter of bhakti, because that's who I am, and it'll take care of everything. Now, to do that, one's intelligence has to be operating. Supposing one's intelligence is in the off position, or dull or dim. Sadhusanga. And the sadhu, or devotee, will hear you, they'll understand you, they'll accept you, and help you. And you feel Krishna's mercy coming through that sadhu. So you take strength beyond your own strength when that downward spiral seems to be out of control. Sadhu Sangha. Okay. You have something. This is our last question.
Maharaj, you shared that not establishing an ashram is a fault.
I didn't say that. The commentary says that.
Yes. So trying to understand that and what's the consequence of that fault.
There's a basis from which to work. And there's varna and there's ashram, and those are social considerations. But if it doesn't have a clearly defined ashram, then it's messy. There isn't really shelter. There is shelter if you accept, and if not, then you're floating around. Do you know some people in that category? I know some people in that category, and it's very awkward. So it should be. It's a fault, dosha. So then, you don't have to be attached to being this or that, but you live within the framework of this or that. And then you have guardrails. You stay within these boundaries of this ashram or that ashram. And don't step outside. And that's just, it's like trainer wheels on a kid's bicycle. Once the bicycle riding skill is there, the training wheels are required, but you still don't do goofy things. There's boundaries. You live within them. Protection. Social. And the absence of that social is a disturbance for the individual and for the society. So be respectful of the principle. It's not like overnight, but these directionally move in a certain direction. Okay? You got this. You're going to say something else, I can tell.
I was just thinking,
Microphone, please.
When children, they're coming out of college, so it takes
Be
time.
patient. Be patient. Don't twist arms. Don't break arms. But in due course of time. It's just a principle, a direction to move in. And it's not like the direction has to be, in 30 seconds. It can be some period of time, but directionally. I mean, take this guy. He took his time. And some people don't take their time, they end up in a mess. So he's a little, on the extra cautious side, that's okay. He was clear of what direction to move in. It's okay? Srila Prabhupada ki jai.